everyone. Welcome. We're waiting for one of our moderators to join. Matthew, I see you. Thank you so much for that. Hello. Really happy to have you. Um, and we'll just give it a minute. Hi, Daniel. How's it going? Neil. Great to have all of you. Just seem to be having some technical difficulties as we're waiting for our two guests to join. So now you're just stuck with me for a little bit. So there you go. Now, hi Ksenia, how's it going? We're just waiting for Greg to come on, and then we can actually really get started here.
I see
It looks
here.
like his bandwidth is too low. Hey Greg, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, perfect. We just won't see you maybe for the rest of the webinar, but either way, welcome all of you. So I'm Karen and I'll be moderating this session. I lead the growth team here at AppFollow, and really in this session we will explore the power of user input and how to close the loop between customer feedback and product development. And so joining me today to explore this topic are two seasoned experts who have navigated really the intricate landscape of app development, feedback integration, and reputation enhancement. And so I'll introduce Greg Posner. He is a global partner engineer at Keyword Studios. He specializes in HelpShift Technologies, who is they're one of our partners, and he really brings expertise in optimizing user engagement. And he is also the host of the Player Engage podcast, and so feel free to listen to it if you can. And then I also have the pleasure of having Ksenia joining us today. She is leading the growth and billing streams here at AppFollow. She's a product owner and with an engineer background and a master's degree in the digital economy. She is, she's really dedicated to bringing a uniform self-service experience to AppFollow users. And so once again, thank you so much for joining us. And so in this session, we really seek to explore this question of why establishing a customer feedback loop is important for our companies, for your company, our company. And so we really believe that by establishing a customer feedback loop, your business can really foster a sense of partnership with your customers. So there are few steps, and so it really involves actively seeking and acknowledging the end user feedback, really indicating that their opinions and preferences are important. And as a result, it can lead to stronger relationships, therefore increasing customer loyalty and advocacy towards your business. And so in terms of this loop that we're talking about, really the first step is gathering feedback. And so why don't we start with you, Greg? I would really love to hear your thoughts on collecting actionable feedback. What are the best sources to consider? Do you have any recommendations on how to get started?
Yeah, thanks, Karen. I think feedback is probably one of the most important aspects of customer engagement that companies should be collecting, whether it's from the alpha stage all the way until the end of the product lifecycle, because the idea is you want to be able to hear from your users and your audience and how they're interacting with the app. Whether you're a small company building an app for the first time or you're an enterprise company building an app for the umpteenth time, it's always important to understand what is my user feedback. In general, typically when you go out there and you build an app for the first time, if you're a smaller company, you think you know what people want to play or do or how they want to interact with the app, and you get married to your idea. And sometimes it's hard to hear that feedback, but once you put your feedback into the wild and you let people come back and say things like, hey, I don't like where this button placement is, I don't like this color, I'm having trouble with that, right? You can start to shape your product and build your product into more of a product that people want to use. So just by providing a platform that allows you to collect feedback is the most important. I'll do a shameless plug and say at HelpShift, we do provide tools that allow you to collect feedback from all different channels, right? Whether it be in app, if you're using an app, it could be on the web, it could be from social media. It's your choice, but you don't need necessarily a true tool to get started, right? If you really want to do it, just put an email address out there to collect feedback. It's important just to make sure that you're hearing from your users, no matter what channel it is, on how they're using the app, what they like and what they don't like, so you can make smarter decisions about what you want to be able to do next and how you evolve the app to your user base.
Fantastic. And what about Ksenia? Any thoughts here?
I'd love to build on top of that, Greg. Awesome idea about just pushing the email out there and having all those thoughts getting to your information space, because if you don't know something, you don't know something. You don't even have ideas where to start and what to make better. But also, when you get a bit bigger, it might be very powerful for you to have some aggregated information, because not everyone in the company can read all the feedback you have. It's impossible. It can be trillions of data points, and having the summary and having the maybe rolling summary, seeing what is changing, seeing what people are liking, what they don't like, maybe segment and have summaries for different segments of users, is very powerful and very needed for the bigger companies.
I'd also, sorry if you don't mind me adding on to that, for bigger companies as well, it's about getting the feedback to the appropriate departments, right? I was in customer support as my first job, and I remember I would get this feedback coming to me that had to go to engineering or had to go to marketing, and it becomes a blocker because I can't really help you there. So you can find tools and automations that automatically get that feedback to the appropriate department, and then that appropriate department can make better decisions, and it becomes it becomes more seamless because it all is all happening automatically. The data is being collected, the appropriate feedback is getting sent to the appropriate department, and then that department can start to handle it. They can prioritize it, they can stack rank it, and it becomes this whole system. Again, it's continuous listening and continuous improvement by each department from within your company.
I love that point. I think it's just so important for the right data to get to the right source, and to the right department, right? And so really, I guess that kind of brings us, it actually ties really nicely into our next step, is that after gathering everything you need, how do you analyze and prioritize the data? For example, Ksenia, can you walk us through how you do that here at AppFollow?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, having something summarized is very helpful. I'm leading the self-service movement at AppFollow, if it's possible to say it like that. So I'm manually reading everything that a certain group of customers is writing to us. So it will be on everything they write into our help center, everything they write in our polls within the product, everything we got from, I don't know, from anywhere we can find it. So I have my channels in Slack and I'm reading that, but it is impossible to read everything. So we do have an awesome thing in company called Voice of Client, where CSMs are gathering together, the all sales department are gathering together all the information around tickets, all the information about feedback, all the information about feature requests from different types of customers. So they are providing us with the good slice of overview of all the feedback, because I can be very narrow-minded when I'm looking at a product, because I'm voting and rooting for self-service motion, and sometimes it can influence my decisions, obviously, but having that source where I can read everything through the whole, about all our customer base, about everything that's getting around, it is very important and very, very, very much powerful. So I really much suggest it to everyone.
Awesome. And then, Greg, how do you do this at HelpShift or even in other roles that you've had?
Yeah, I think back to my first job again. It was actually at Banana Republic, which is not exciting, but I've learned, you always hear the customer's always right, the customer's always right, and then you kind of get hit by the reality that maybe the customer isn't always right, right? The customer always has an opinion, and you should always take that opinion. And it's important to understand that, but the customer is not always going to be right. They may not understand the true vision of what you're trying to build. So I think what you need to start to understand is that many companies are basically putting different weights to the type of feedback that they're getting from the different types of users that they have. So just looking at my screen, right, we have Karen. Maybe Karen is a new user to a game I just launched. Maybe she's playing Candy Crush, right? And she comes, and for the first day ever she's playing, she goes, hey, you need to add this, 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 and this. And it's like, okay, Karen, this is the first time you're playing the game, and we're going to take that feedback, and it's important for us to understand that. But then if Ksenia comes in, and she's been playing our game for 3 years, and she maybe comes in, see, she's our Candy Crush expert here, and she says, hey, I think this feature would be helpful. When I'm looking at the different types of users that are providing this feedback to me, I have one long-term player that's been playing for a long time and one new player that's coming in for the first time. And you need to start understanding, how do I want to weigh that? Both of their feedback is very important to us, right? Because we want to make sure that Karen is a new player, that we can retain her. Retaining a user in your game or your app is an important thing to do, and it's not easy. But we also want to make sure our long-term players also keep playing the game. So what we do at HelpShift is, when you provide feedback, we can collect metadata on your users, right? And understand, hey, how much have they spent in app? How much time have they spent in app? What type of level are they? Are they VIP level user? Are they a freemium type of user? And then when that feedback gets provided, what we have the ability to do, if you think about different types of integrations, is maybe create a Jira ticket, right? That says, hey, Ksenia, a high value customer, is providing this feedback to us. Maybe this has to become priority on our next sprint versus Karen, who provided this feedback. And maybe we want to regroup on that and huddle about it and talk about how we want to handle that. So I think when you start taking a look at feedback, and I'm always going to stress that all feedback is good feedback, but when you start to decide, how do we recreate this roadmap? What do we want to put on our roadmap? How do we want to stack rank this? You can start taking a look at these different attributes about your users and make more educated decisions on how you want to proceed forward based on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. And even in our case, we definitely take a look at enterprise clients, their feedback. As Ksenia mentioned, we use Product Board and other tools that are really helpful, that help us kind of funnel that, and then understanding the type of customer that it is too, as you mentioned. I love that point of not all feedback is created equal. Perfect. And then in terms of our sort of next step, which is really to decide and take action. And I'll start off with you, Greg. In your opinion, what role does customer feedback play in the long-term success of a product or an application? And really, how can it effectively be integrated into the development, let's say, of new features and products, and also in the marketing process?
Yeah, and before jumping right into that, I'll take a look at what Dana said in the chat here about AI summaries, and this goes to what Ksenia also said, was that there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of people coming in there, and the beauty of these new AI tools that are coming in there is to be able to take this big data set and aggregate it, and then you can take a look at how are we going to put this into our long-term success of our app? How are we going to continue to build this out? And it's similar to what we just answered last time, is once you start understanding the type of feedback that you're creating, you can start to take a look at the product team and the engineering team and say, hey, how are we gonna put these onto our roadmap? How are we going to build this? We've talked to many companies that have things like public facing roadmaps, which I'm a big fan of, but I would not tell every company to go put a public facing roadmap out there. It's a very risky thing to do, but it's a fun way to be able to see, hey, what are these companies listening? Like, are they actually listening to their users? What are they doing? How are they building this feedback into their product lifecycle? So for me personally, right? Like when I'm looking at the app store, there's tons of apps out there. And if I could see, hey, in this latest version of this note-taking app, they've been taking user feedback and updating it on a monthly or quarterly or annual basis. And it gets exciting to me because it shows me that they're actually taking the time to listen to me and make changes based on that, rather than an app coming to me saying, this is the way it needs to be done. This is what we're doing. And it just doesn't seem as user-friendly. And I think it's just an exciting way to be able to take a look at the development process based on my users' feedback and build out the roadmap based on that.
I would also build on top of that, saying that everything starts and ends with the company strategy, and it is feedback is a very, very powerful instrument. It's a tool, but as any other tool, it can be used for good or it can be used useless, basically. So for you to understand, which was a good example with a new and old user, and I wanted to continue this example, saying, illustrating it, that depending on your customer strategy, if you're right now focusing on the marginal user and you want to focus on retaining your marginal user, you will be actually favoriting another feedback rather than retaining the old customers because they already with you. So that very much depends on your customer strategy. So the strategy of listening to the customers, the strategy of feeding that into your roadmap, and the strategy of working with the feedback loop is always starts and ends with the strategy of your company in the very moment right that you are in right now. Not because Fank is doing that, not because the other company is doing that, but depending on what metrics are you featuring right now and what is your position and how you want to position your particular app on the market.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful point. I think, thank you so much for kind of bringing in that strategy and that customer feedback strategy, and how important it is. And so now, Ksenia, do you have any maybe tips on how to prioritize feedback? You mentioned like understanding um, feedback, but and also turning it into some actionable next steps. But is there anything else? Are there any other tips that you can give us?
Yeah, I think it would be quite different for B2B and B2C types of businesses. But as B2B, I find it will be different instruments, but the same idea. I find very important a thing to verify the feedback. Because you can get a lot of, I don't know, you pushed out the email with some survey saying, okay, what source you like? This is a very recent example from us. And people are just voting something. And then you make a decision that the source that everybody voted the most will be the most profitable. But no, it will be the most popular, but not necessarily the most profitable. So depending on the goal you have and the feedback you've got, you need to verify it. We as the B2B business, we're doing product interview with our customers, talking about what use cases they need, what specifically they would like in the sources or in the AI summaries or anywhere else in all the features we're exploring right now. Or in self-serve motion. So I'm also talking with the clients, even with the smaller ones, what they did like, what they didn't like, what they did understand or not, because from the it not always visible in the metrics. Sometimes you need to dive deeper. So verification of the feedback can be done in a quantitative and qualitative way. We're doing both, but as B2B, we can do qualitative also. With B2C, probably not the best thing to do, talking with all your customers. So I think, yeah, this one would be the biggest tip I've learned in AppFollow.
If I could build on that a little bit, I love that idea. I think customer interviews, surveys, understanding how they're going to use these features is essential, because there's often times that you're going to build this product again with the idea that, hey, people are going to love this. People are all going to use this tool right when I release it. It's like the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come in. That's not the case, right? And this is something me and my product managers will fight about, and I'll probably get an earful from them later. But they've just kind of built into me, hey, if you want a feature request, if you want to build out this feedback and see what's happening, let's start putting some numbers behind it, right? Is there going to be money made here? Is it going to make people happier? Is it a quality of life upgrade? Is it a new service? And talk to the customers. And not only that, see, when you take a look at all the feedback that you're getting, if it's about a new service line or new feature, right? Maybe you don't need to, maybe you could combine the multiple pieces of it, right? Like maybe Karen wants one thing and Matthew wants another thing, but maybe we can build something that incorporates both of them. It helps both of them, right? And this is where that survey, when you're talking to your customer and you can get a better understanding of what their use case is, you can take that feedback and decide how you want to be able to use that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for that. And then, Craig, would you say that closing this feedback loop will have a positive impact on like App Store ratings? So we hear it at Follow, and I think most of our customers have either an application or, which is either, their main product, or it's a strategic ad to the company. And so we really do care a lot about App Store ratings. And so do you see a connection there?
100%, no doubt about it. And we can go back to my example of the note-taking app. We could also talk about Candy Crush over and over again. But if we want to take a look at the app marketplace, it is a large place. You can find multiple versions of any app that you want out there, and you have to determine which match 3 game am I going to download, which note-taking app am I going to download. And for a lot of people out there that don't know the market as well, they're going to look at the customer satisfaction rating, that star rating that they're getting in the marketplace, and say, you know what? This has 4.7 stars versus 3.6 stars. So why would I download the 3.6 star one? And I believe my personal feeling, and based on what we've heard from our customers, is that these reviews matter. Listening to the audience when they come in and make a complaint on the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store, right? And AppFollow's capturing that, and Helpshift's capturing that. How do you turn that 3-star review into a 5-star review? By proving that you're there listening and you're not just a robot is going to make a huge difference to the user that's putting that feedback in there. And maybe they will go back and change it. So by completing that feedback loop and showing the users that you're actually listening to them and providing them a platform where they can help collaborate with you, or again, just be an ear where they can complain to you, it's going to make a big difference for your App Store rating to be able to get a higher star rating. And in return, you will see increased downloads. That's just how the App Store works. The more stars you get, the more ratings you get, the more downloads you're going to get.
I would build on top of that, saying that gosh, too many thoughts. So first of all, right now on the market, with all the crisis and post-pandemic economic situation, we can see the trends on people getting more picky and the apps they choose, and basically choosing one app and stick with it longer. So right now, the casual and hyper casual games, they're alive, but not that much. So everything goes towards sticking and converting and expanding your current users. And if you're winning a new user, you want them to stick. And how do you win a new user? You basically show them that you're not a robot, as Greg said. And as people start being more picky, can you imagine like last time you bought something on the internet or went to a cafe or something? I personally do that. I go to the reviews and I open 1 stars, only 1 stars. I'm not looking at the good reviews. Too many apps and too many restaurants and everything are just buying them. So that's why I'm opening 1 stars and looking how company reacted to that. So it can be both ways. So some people are weird. So some people are too picky, or the problems that they're stating are not the problems I would care about. So for example, if the client says that something went wrong with their order, and the support team will write down that, okay, can you please provide the order number or write to our technical support? We're here to help you. That will, and the time of response will be within the same day. I would say that, okay, I know that even if something goes wrong with my order, I will be able to get back to them and they will actually help me, not just having millions of 1-star reviews without any response and people just being very sad and very annoyed after you actually put some money in it. So this is the first thing I wanted to say. And the second thing was today I was learning German in the language learning app. I would not say the name. And I've encountered a bug for the third time in a row, and I was so pissed off. I went to the I spent 10 minutes looking where to give them feedback. And then I've shared the feedback. It included the logs, it included everything about my device. I was just, yay. Probably, maybe they will catch it and fix it. But then I didn't get any email that they got my feedback or any notification on anything, like anything at all. I was just like, did they get it? Yeah. A small email with thank you would have been super nice. So it is, I'm not even saying that promises that they will fix it, or okay, we took it to our roadmap for Q3 next year. No ETA is nothing, but just saying thank you and finishing the feedback loop is very much important for the clients. So this is the client eyes perspective right now.
Yeah, and I think just the importance of being heard. I think as humans, when we're experiencing a problem, we want some sort of feedback like, oh, okay, this company really understands what I'm going through. Thank you. Acknowledgement is it's really key there. And so in terms, and that this kind of leads us in to one of our last questions here, which is, what are some best practices for delivering an exceptional user experience based on customer feedback, right? So we talked a lot about like the App Store. We talked about, giving, receiving feedback, but then how does it actually translate into that user experience?
Should I take that one first? Or? I think it goes two ways. I think what Ksenia just mentioned is probably the most important part of this is just pure acknowledgement, right? Maybe you take what I said and you flush it down the drain, but you acknowledge, hey, we got your feedback. Still not thrilled what you did with it, but at least you acknowledge that you got my feedback. I think the most important part of that loop is to make sure that the loop is complete, and that's just a thank you, we received it. You can go above and beyond and say, hey, we're going to put it on our roadmap. It's important for us to make this change, but just acknowledging that that you received that feedback is important. I think from the other side of it, it's again, what are you going to do with that feedback? How do you process it internally? Who do you send it to? Like, what's the process internally, just to make sure that it is heard, it is stack ranked? Do we maybe never do this? And don't be afraid to tell customers, and maybe you don't want to word it as bluntly as I do here, is that that's not stuff we're going to do in our app, right? Don't be afraid to know who you are and what your app is. You don't have to cater to everyone's feedback the same exact way. Don't be afraid to say no if it's not the right app for that person. But make sure that you take the feedback that they're saying and you do the right thing internally with it, whether, again, send it to marketing, send it to product, send it to engineering, whoever needs to take that feedback. And then you can kind of finish a loop internally from that way. So you have the external closing the loop, which is, thank you, we've received it. Maybe we'll follow up in the next few weeks. And then you have the internal, hey, I escalated this. It's on our Q&A, or not Q&A, I'm thinking Q&A, but our R&D's roadmap right now. They're taking a look at it, and now they're going to determine what to do next.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that that's really important. And I think sometimes it gets a little bit tricky in terms of timeline and making sure you actually the product team and the engineering team really takes that feedback very seriously. So thank you for sort of bringing that to light. And then Ksenia, to really finish us off here, and I think you alluded to it a little bit earlier, but why do you think it's important to get back to the end user after fixing the problem or even implementing the change that they requested?
I think it's important to get back even if you didn't. So the more transparency there is for the end user, the more trust the end user will put into you, and trust monetizes itself. So I think with my experience, there is even I don't know in which book I've read this example, that there was a business, they on purpose did a small messing with the orders, and then they proactively got to the user saying, we know there is a problem, we're fixing it. Then they obviously fixed it because they were the ones that made the mess, and the users were even happier than the users that didn't encounter any problems with their orders. So I think owning your decision and explaining your decisions, even if it is no to the customer, should be very important, especially in B2B kind of business, but also with B2C. Can you imagine with your favorite games, with your favorite game, actually getting an email that they've received your feedback and they will be doing something that you've asked for? Oh gosh, I would have been just jumping around the house screaming. So I don't know, it is super empowering, and it also showing the customers that they don't only value what you said, but also that you are the part of the process of something that is important to you. So it is not only trust, but also you're giving them wings, saying that you actually know something about us and we have something in common, we have something mutual over there.
Absolutely. No, all really valid and really important points here that you're making. And so to wrap it up, I just wanted to leave you all with just some thoughts that, I mean, everything we discuss as it relates to closing the loop, it really has everything to do with making your customers feel valued and really aware that the organization cares about their pain points, and is not only willing to listen, but it's also willing to act on their feedback. And so from our conversation, we really talked about trust and making sure that the end user is being heard, because at the end of the day, what we want to do is that we want to continue that relationship with our end users, and we want to not only continue with the relationship, but we really want to see that growth, and also just to for that positive word of mouth about our company, because reputation really does matter. And so now we really are going to open it up for Q&A. We saw something in the chat here which was a question from Matthew, and he is reaching out to us from Heal Actively, and he is actually preparing to launch his first MVP before the end of November. And so he's asking, what are the best practices for user feedback for a new B2C app in the market? And we'll start off. He has a few different questions, so I'll start off with that question, and then we'll go down the list, and then we'll see what other questions sort of come up.
Sure. So first off, Matthew, congratulations. This is an exciting stage to be in, and it's great to be thinking about this stuff. To your first question here of beyond the obvious on what you want to do, I'd also, again, shameless plug for HelpShift, but if you're app-based, I would highly recommend giving people in the app itself a direct way to provide feedback. We do it via chat. Usually when you do email, it kind of bounces you out. Depends on the flow you want to be able to do. But I think by providing an easy to find feedback for them in the app is going to be the most important thing to do at your launch, right? At your launch, I'm not sure if you've done a beta or your alpha or just going straight for it, which doesn't really make a difference either way. But just make sure you give them an easy way to communicate with you on what the feedback is, and make sure, again, just make sure you acknowledge that feedback, right? Again, if you have a new user, new app, you don't want them to think that they're hanging there when you provide that feedback. That's a crummy experience, and it's probably going to lead to a user that just churns after that.
Ksenia, any thoughts?
I would also say that depending on the scale of your launch, it would be very insightful for you to maybe give the customers Calendly link and say, maybe you want to talk. Because not everything can be written in a written form. Sometimes it's just pure emotions that is very hard to express. But if you liked the app, you might really want to give some suggestions or to provide some information. What value did you find in the app? Because it can be not the value that you've put in the app. It can be something else, and that would be very interesting for you if you have the capacity for that. I would say that a couple of slots in the Calendly would give you a huge opportunity of knowing your users.
Perfect. And then two more questions that he has is, should you offer them the ability to vote on the backlog for features outside website, perhaps roadmap, or and number two, is there a difference between iOS and Android? And I think maybe this is related to feedback, obviously beyond the obvious that they're two different stores, but even just gathering feedback from either of these apps.
So voting is a cool idea, and my next answer is just going to be purely how I feel. I would be careful about letting people at this stage provide votes on what features you want to release. You have to make sure that you take a look at what your roadmap is, what you're trying to build, and you need to make sure that you build the pillars of your app that are going to be the most important. You don't want to drastically alter something based on feedback, unless, as mentioned, get on a call with them and hear them out. Maybe the use case will be strong enough that makes you think about it. Maybe there's small features like, hey, do you want to do peaceful music versus peaceful images? And give them like curated decisions that they can make that decision on. But when you take a look at the actual app that you're building, make sure you're taking care of the fundamentals before you start listening to outside noise on how to drastically alter the app. And that's just my gut feeling. When it comes to the difference between iOS and Android, I think from a platform, it's less important depending on where in the world you are. In the States, iPhone has, I think, a pretty sizable difference lead over Android versus abroad, where I think Android has the difference. I don't think there's much difference on which store you're launching on or how the feedback's collected.
I would give a small insight that Google Store is not providing actual information about the country. It is only providing information about the language of the feedback. So you cannot track country by country, as you can do in iOS. So this is the only difference I can say about those two platforms and the feedback. Other than that, it works the same, maybe a bit different segments of the clients. About voting, as a product person, I would also recommend you being very, very, very much careful about it, because before you found your solid product market fit, you cannot be sure what direction and what pillars would you would be building on top of. So having millions of features used by 1-2 people, but they all are core people, they've been with us from the day one and they gave us huge feedback and they helped us a lot, will actually lead to a huge, just big amount of features that you need to support without a whole story around them. And from technical perspective, this leads to unbearable something, and in 5 years your IT guys will say, just we need to rebuild it from scratch, and it will cost you 2 years if you want to keep all those features. So this is why you need to be very picky, and having people deciding is not the best idea. Having solid interviews process and understanding your metrics, understanding your product market fit will serve you better, in my point of view.
Perfect. And then we actually have an AppFollow question, Matthew. Thank you for using us, which is how does AppFollow help? He wrote to us that he just started to monitor their competitors. So Ksenia, if you want to take this one, I'll add my 2 cents too, since we use the platform extensively. And I'm also part of the customer success team.
Yeah, so I'd say that on the pre-launch time, the monitoring competitors is the most important instrument for you to understand what is their ASO strategy. Would you want to go to the same keywords as they are using and try to win them there, or you want to differentiate somehow to see what other keywords are actually free and they're not very strong at them and use them instead. So basically, to make your first ASO strategy work without any information about your app yet, the only thing you can do is to decide how to differentiate or how to win against your competitors. So this is about pre-launch. When you launch, very important to talk to your customers. When you have 1, 2, 5, 10 first feedbacks, write back that you appreciate the feedback, and people will be thrilled about that. And in-app, talk to the customers. This is not how AppFollow can help, but answering the feedback can be done via AppFollow also. You can also tag the feedback in AppFollow using manual tags, and this will help you in the future to see the trends, what were maybe some problems, bugs, or it was some feature requests, and you will see how many of those there were along the way.
Perfect. And then we have Jordi here who is asking for a recommendation. So he says, do you recommend a process for replying back to App Store reviews which describe a one-off technical issue? At the moment, we ask them to reach out to our support team, but ideally, we would not want to ask them to make an additional step when they're trying to reply, when they're replying and we're trying to help.
Yeah. Again, sorry for the shameless plug, but this is where I think the Help Shift and AppFollow integration is great, because if you're a customer of any brand, right, and you go and you reach out and you take the time to either call them or write to them, and they're like, oh no, you got to go call this other department, you're going to get frustrated. It's just, you're going to get frustrated. The beauty of the integration is, AppFollow will collect all the reviews that you're providing from your users, and HelpShift will pull those reviews in, and then you can send them to the appropriate department. So whether it be, hey, you need to talk to customer support, I'm just going to transfer the ticket there, and all of a sudden customer support can be helping you. Think about it from the eyes of your consumer, right? You want to make sure that no matter who they reach out to, you're helping them. You don't want to send them away and say, hey, you got to go over here. Just provide that one-stop shop where you're able to do whatever you need to with your customer. And that's my personal thought.
Anything to add there?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of things to add there, because the instruments that app stores are giving us to actually give the feedback back to the user are very much limited. We don't have email of the user. We don't have any other information rather than some information about their app version of the app or country or language. So but they also give the username. First, if you want to build a great experience, I would say you need a process of looking for the username in your usernames in your app, if you have them, or in the emails database, because a lot of people just use the same prefix. So if you will find a match, then you will be able to do the magic. You will be able to reach out to the customer in the native way in your app or in the email, and this will be pure gold. If it is impossible, and obviously not all the users will have the same prefix, or you may not have the that information in your app, you may just, as Greg proposed, have a solid handoff process internally and answer the best department can answer and provide information.
Perfect. And I know that we are 1 minute over time, but I just wanted to get to Neil here. If we have any recommendations for hiring like a rating service, I'm not 100% sure if Greg or Ksenia, if you have any recommendations there.
That I'm not sure of. I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm not sure if I fully understand the question there, but are you looking to find a way to get reviews? I'm not.
It's not very clear. But Neil, we can follow up with you. You can also reach us at help@follow.io. And we're happy to help you continue the conversation there. Is there, Greg, any email that maybe you want to add or include here?
Yeah, you could email me directly. It's just greg@helpshift.com or support@helpshift.com. That can get routed to me, but I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions that people have.
Perfect. So you heard that. And so fantastic. So feel free to write to us. We're here. Thank you so much for joining us. And so, if there are any questions, we're happy to definitely continue the conversation. We're just 3 minutes over time. We really love spending time with you. Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you, Ksenia. It's been wonderful hearing your insights.
Thank you.
I think we have to tell that the link for the next session is in the chat. Please follow it if you want to join the next session with with us today. Thank you. Sorry.
Fantastic. Amazing. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, and have a good one, y'all. Bye.